All right. Greetings. Hey, it's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today's Tuesday, May 17th. I'm your host, Mark, and I'm coming to you from Baker's Green Acres in Marion, Michigan. And we are enjoying a really nice day here today. Real nice. A little on the cool side this morning, but we had plenty of sun. I had a few tasks ahead of me today that I knew I needed to get done. I have feed coming tomorrow. The big task I had to do was I had to get the feed bin cleaned out. What happens is condensation builds up on the inside of the tank and feed sticks to it. And then it decomposes. So you will have about an inch of grain dust on the inside or feed dust, and then it decomposes. It literally turns to manure. And when you have to take some of it apart and then reach in there and scoop it out with your hands. And I stink right now. I smell like I've been scooping out dog manure. And there was a lot of it. There was like probably a couple 100 pounds of it. I knew I needed to do it. And I've just been putting it off. And then I come to find out I'm told that the feed is coming tomorrow evening. So I didn't know how bad it was going to be. So I kind of put it off until about 4 o'clock today. Finally went out there and looked at it. And yeah. But anyway, it's done. I just need to put it back together. I'm going to go flush it out after I finish up with you guys. And then I'm going to go out and throw it back together, let it breathe all night and dry off. And tomorrow it will dry out. And yeah, feed can come and we'll be fine. But that's what life is like. On a farm, you find out that things need attention and you're getting pulled in a bunch of different directions. And then all of a sudden you find out, hey, Dad, it's 7:45. So I had to come up and throw some food down my stomach, but that's cool. That's cool. I listened to a really interesting podcast today. Our subject tonight is going to be permanent crops. And I kind of picked that because that's sort of what I was working on today before I had to do my feed bin. And as I was working on it, I mean, I'm finally to the place where I can work on stuff that doesn't demand my attention all the time. And I'm just putting out a spot fire. You know, I could actually create. So I put a video up on the tribe because I wanted to show you guys what I was doing because I think it's really cool. I mean, one of these days, it would be kind of nice if I mowed the lawn. I took care of the garden. I picked tomatoes and put salt on them and ate them and did stuff like that. And I wasn't, I didn't smell like I do right now. I smell really bad right now. Excuse me. I just had some chicken gizzards Jill made for dinner. Really good, really good. But I wanted to show you this because it's sort of a creativity thing. Once I did what I did and I got motivated down at DeClerc's a couple weeks ago when they had their organic gardening class, and I saw the use of weed fabric, really good weed blocking fabric. And I've used it here, but I've always felt like that stuff doesn't work. It's like the quackgrass grows right through it. And so I figured it just doesn't work, but I've been getting low quality weed block is what I've been doing, which I have, And so Beth said, Beth, you buy the good stuff from Grower Supply, nothing will grow through it. So I did, bought it, put it down. And I'm making a border around the garden. I pasted off today, and it's 100 by 80. was a pretty good sized garden, and I laid this weed block down, and I'm going to plant permanent crops in there, like asparagus, like blueberries, like I got a bunch of raspberries, and what else? Strawberries, right? And the reason why they don't survive is because we have quackgrass. We have just weeds, they get choked out by everything else that's in the soil. If you could somehow take the soil and get all of the weed seed out of it, I would almost consider doing it, because it's really difficult to grow something like a permanent crop and not have it get choked out. It can be done. It just takes a lot of doing, because you have to stay on it. You have to be on your hands and knees pulling weeds. Okay, we got the weeds. They're going to come back. And I'm okay with that. It's just that I don't have time to dedicate there. I don't have that kind of time. That's a very finite resource, right? So anyway, that's what I was doing today, and I want to talk about permanent crops like that, and just the mentality that goes with that. But before I do that, I told you guys the other night, Monday night, yeah, I even showed you the guy. It was one of those deals where I was listening to Penny Kelly. She's a gal from Michigan, and I don't know what you'd call her. She's just a lady that lives on a farm like we do, and I guess you'd call her an intuitive. She's got intuition. Maybe I do too. But she got a lot of intuition, and she's got very good sentence structure, and she makes it her business to think ahead, and try to see what's coming. And she does this thing, it's called a look-see, right, for the month of, and she had about 20 points that she wanted to make, and some of them were not exactly good news, but some of them I grabbed right a hold of. And there was one, so if you wanted to listen to that, I thought it was good. It was sent to me by Luann. I think she knows Penny Kelly, actually. This gal's right down in southern Michigan, so she's pretty local. Seems like a nice person. But one of the things she said was, for those of you that like to make things, are willing to make things, grow things, provide a service, design things, we're coming into your time, right? And that was exciting to me, because that's me. I like to do all those things, fix things, make things. I'm not a good employee. I'm really not. I'm way too sensitive, like the day after day, and the boss comes in a bad mood, I take it way too personally, and I have a tendency to like, hey, wait a minute, And so I'm not a good employee. I'm just not. And a lot of employers want you to do a certain job, and I'll say, hey, we could do it better if we did. Hey, just do it the way I do. Okay. And then I get an attitude, and it just never turns out good when I'm an employee. It really doesn't. It never has. I do my best when I am working for myself, for my own company. I'm much better of a person to be around when I'm that way. And I get to use my skills. I get to use the stuff that I have. So I got pretty excited about that. And then another guy came on. It was sort of an autoplay deal. I just had an earbud in and I was just listening and I was working on something. And this other guy comes on. And so I didn't see him. And he was being interviewed. I'll show it to you again. He was being interviewed by some other guy, and the other guy. The other guy's a money guy. All right, his name. The interviewer was a guy by the name of Lewis Howes, Howes, and he interviews people who are wealthy, right? And of course, it's how you define wealth is way different when they explain wealth than what I think of as wealth. But anyway, this guy comes on and I listen to him, and the name of his thing is, okay, let me see. I showed it to you guys last night, so it's here. Okay, here it is. No, that's not it. Oh, this is all the music I was listening to the other day. Billy Joel, Beatles. Play that funky music, white boy. Okay. That was kind of autoplay too. Oh, here it is. How they keep you poor.
This right here is worth $1 million.
I did this the other night, didn't I?
Thinking, well, it's made out of gold or platinum, or is that?
Figure it out yourself, because unfortunately.
All right, so you would have to. I don't know as I can actually show it to you. It's the one right in the middle. Yeah, the biggest lies you've been told, how they keep you poor. It's that one right in the front. See the guy? He's got a turban. Right there. I recommend you listen to that. I really do. Now, if I was going through, I probably would have passed that one. And I'm sad to say that, because I would like to hang out with that guy. But I maybe seeing the turban, I might just pass him by. And that's pretty short thinking, isn't it? Because as I listened to that podcast, it was an interview. He was talking about money and what it means to him. Oh, all of a sudden, my microphone went. And I kind of thought, well, this isn't going to be too interesting, because when I think of money, I think of being wealthy as having just, a lot of money in the bank. And that's kind of how I've always thought of it. Whenever I've needed something, I have to have the money to pay for it or I don't get it. But they look at it a completely different way. And he started up by explaining that currency that we use is fiat. So it's really backed by the confidence in the U.S. government. And the confidence in the U.S. government is waning right now. And so our currency is waning. And he said, you don't want to keep money in the bank. Anytime you get cash, like let's say you get a cash payment for something, you want to get that grouped up with other cash that you have and invest it in something that is going to pay you. So the example was he had bought a condominium when he was 22 years old. And the condominium, he paid $8,000 for it. And it was Southern Michigan, too. It was in 2008. And it was a frustrated deal. The bank just wanted to get rid of it. Hey, that happens. And so he picked it up. and it pays him, as rents have gone up, it pays him like $1,500 a month every month, 12 months a year. And since 2008, that's a lot of years. And then he takes that money and he puts it into something else, a nicer condominium that pays him more, and so on and so on. And he was talking about money that when we get paid in cash, you go to work for an employer, you get paid in cash, they're taking income tax out of it. So you made money and they're going to tax you on the money that you made. The government is, right? And we just accept that. That's just the way it is. But when you think about it, it's a little crazy when you really think about it. Because they don't really provide us with anything that you can see. Oh, well, what about the roads? Well, what about the tax that I pay on fuel? What about that? So anyway, that's a whole nother subject. But if you get to the position where this guy is in, he was explaining Elon Musk, for instance, that Elon does not take a paycheck from Tesla, because if he did, the government would take income tax out of it to the tune of about 40%. So he would be the top guy. He's the owner. So what he does is he takes stock options. He takes stocks in the company, and he holds them. So that's equity. And then he goes to the bank and he borrows money from the bank, and he lives off the money. He doesn't own his home. He doesn't own a car, makes no income, shows no income, and therefore pays no income tax, right? So that the dollars that he does generate through all of his stock option and everything like that, he can dump it right back into the business. And it made so much sense to me. And I thought about it. I've been thinking about it for a couple days, actually. Well, was that yesterday that I listened to it? Maybe it was. And I've listened to other people, who do the same thing. And it sort of makes some of the things that we've talked about seem doesn't matter, right? So if you create your own circle, if you create your own like biodome, all right, and you're creating your own food, you're creating some products, you're providing some services, and then the dollars that you get from that, or the cash that you get from that, you invest it into your biodome, right? You are never going to pay taxes on that. You're always reinvesting into your business, to the point where you're going to have to get a different business, because you're going to have all the investments made that you can make. On a farm, I don't know how you actually do that, because you could always get a little bit more land. The difference between what I'm talking about and what the big farms do is they're operating on a debt system. So they're getting money from an outside source, and they're being loaned that money, and they have to pay it back with interest. And I don't know exactly whether the loan is taxed or not, but it's still the system. Like, the system is, you go to work, let's say as a machinist. The company pays you, you pay income tax, and then those same dollars that's left over, when you go and buy something, you pay sales tax. So if you avoid that whole money thing, you avoid a lot of the taxation, which amounts to quite a bit. I I I think it's like 60% because between income tax, sales tax, fuel tax, this tax, the other tax, it's so where is there anything left for you to invest into your prosperity? There isn't. So this is a really neat thing, and I'm just touching the tip of it, but it coincides with a concept that I talked with a friend today about, and I've touched on it with you guys as well. But the whole idea of local economies. I was informed today that the co-op that we've bought stuff from forever, if we need grain or, just anything. It's like a farm feed store, but it's local. It's right in our community. It was purchased by a national company called Cirrus Solutions, and they took it over. They got rid of everybody. Like in McBain, there used to be about 6 or 8 guys working there. Now there's the cashier girl and one guy, and they've disassembled the mill. They're taking down all the buildings, so it's basically going to be a gas station and sell, potato chips. So basically, just a little store and a gas station. And the place used to do a lot of business, so they will not be doing business there anymore. And then the one in Falmouth, I was over there today because you can't get anything in McBain anymore. And I needed some lime, so I went over to Falmouth. And I was talking to the guy. There's only one guy there, too. And I said, what's going on? And he says, they're shutting down the mill. I said, where are people going to get feed? And he says, well, you'll order the feed still through us, but then we put a call into the national office, which is, I don't know, Oklahoma or someplace. They do the grinding there, and then they send it up here on trucks. That doesn't sound too local, and that almost sounds a little worrisome because, oh, you mean I have to depend on you guys to do what you say you're going to do? It was a little nicer before when it was locally owned. It was a co-op. And then we also have the grain company too, which is also a co-op. I think I could be wrong on that. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with them. I haven't done business there in a long time, but that type of thing, you hear that and you almost say, whoa, what are we going to do? When I need lime, what am I going to do? Well, it's actually an opportunity when you hear it. So why couldn't there be a guy that puts up a pole building and he orders, 4 skids of chicken feed and other things, and he just keeps them in and so you go to him locally and get what you need. So we have, he's the feed guy. Oh, this guy over here, he's got like a small welding shop. You can go over there and get anything made you want. This guy over here, his wife cuts hair. This guy over here, he pulls teeth. That type of thing. Local economies. And I think that makes a lot of sense because a local economy, you could get away from the dollar, or you could pull back from the dollar. I don't quite have this figured out yet. I think other people have gotten it figured out, but I don't quite have it figured out yet. But it's really intriguing to get away from centralized commodities products, and create our own. When like McBain doesn't have a grocery store, that's an opportunity for somebody, if you ask me. They have a beer store. Now they have 2 beer stores and lottery tickets, cigarettes, liquor. but no grocery store. So everybody's running into Cadillac. Well, Falmouth has one, and that's close. And I go there. I would much rather go there because they don't have self-checkout or anything like that. And I just don't like having to go to Cadillac to fight the masses of people, even though Cadillac's still quite a small town. I think I don't know. I think it might be 50,000. Might be. I don't know. Maybe not even that. But conversation that I had with Bards the other night really got me thinking about not only local food production, but local economies. Local economies. I think that's where we're headed right now. I think I do. And so if you are somebody that can grow stuff, make stuff, design stuff, provide a service, hey, you're going to be it. You're going to be it. And this is what we're about. So it makes our education in this direction that much more fun, because it's not just kind of a weird hobby that we're in. This is legitimate, and it is good work. It's fulfilling work. It's and it is profitable work. It definitely is profitable work. One of the things that I've been learning in the last couple of years is there's a lot of things, a lot of innuendo out there that you hear, and it forms your opinion on things. Like, well, there ain't no money in farming. Of course, there ain't no money in farming. Oh, I guess there ain't no money in farming. Is there money in farming? Oh, no, there ain't no money in farming. Well, how can there be no money in farming? I mean, does that mean that pork chops are free? Does that mean that chicken is free? Does that mean that produce is free? No, it's not free. You go to the store and you pay a pretty penny. Then how can there be no money in farming? I mean, let's just forget there ain't no money in farming, and let's just kind of pick up the pencil and paper and start figuring it out. And then, there's actually farmers say things, and it becomes sort of said enough times that, well, it's like it becomes truth, and then people kind of fulfill their destiny, when they say it. Like, I've never really understood this. If I have one tomato plant that creates 10 tomatoes, and tomatoes are X amount per pound, then my profit per tomato plant is X amount. Well, if I have 100 tomato plants, my potential is the same, except it usually goes down. It usually goes down. And that's because buyers come and say, well, yeah, but I can't give you full price. I can only. Well, so then why should I sell them to you? Why don't I sell them myself? Well, because you can put them out in front of your house here, but no one's going to buy them, except a few neighbors are going to buy them. But I can get them to the masses of people. Well, that sounds like a pretty crummy way to go to me. Like, milking cows. I milk 2 cows. I get 5 gallons of milk. It sells for $10 a gallon, and people pay it willingly for grass-fed milk. Of course, there's always people who say, milk's illegal. But that's kind of BS too, isn't it? But then, so that's $50 a day times 7. That's $350 a week. Well, if you scale that up to 10 cows, I can't do the math right now. Maybe somebody can. Where's Jack when you need him? Somebody else could do the math on it. And let's just say you're going to get 3 gallons per cow. Do the math on that. It'd be pretty heavy. It'd be pretty good. And so I'm just thinking that a lot of what we think about farming is not the reality about farming. It just isn't. So lately I've been thinking a lot broader. Like my reality of money is not the reality of money. Money used the way I described before, like you're a machinist, you make, $20 an hour, but then before you get your paycheck, your employer takes a bunch out of it and sends it to the government for you. Well, that's pretty nice. And then when you take your money, what's left, and you go and get a haircut, well, you got to pay tax on that haircut. And when you got to go over and buy groceries, you're paying tax. Go over and you buy gasoline to get home, you're paying tax. Buy a new car, you got to pay tax. You buy a used car, you got to pay tax. Get the thing registered, got to pay, registration fee and insurance and everything else. So by the time it's all said and done, you're basically sending a nice chunk to the government, and everybody else is standing there with their hand out, and you're giving them the money, and you get kind of left with not much, enough for, that one can of beer and some pork rinds. And it's like, man, this is living. Don't get much better than this, does it? See, but when you're using money that way, it's benefiting everybody else, but not you. And so I don't know. I've always kind of thought, well, the other day we were over in Cadillac, and we went down this road that I've never been down. And I saw some houses on this road that, holy smokes, this looks incredible. These homes right on the lake with very expensive boats in the driveway. I mean, extremely expensive on Lake Cadillac. It's not a big lake. And then, the Escalade driveway, of course. And you kind of think, well, that guy must be a PhD. That guy must, he must have really got educated. He must work hard. He must do that. No, I think they're playing a different game. That's not a machinist that's getting $20 an hour and paying taxes on fuel and taxes on this and income tax and all that stuff. They're playing a different game, right? And I'm not sure that I understand that game. I just know that there is a different game out there, right? And it's kind of interesting that we talk about farming, and we how much do we know? How much do we really know about what we're doing? We're kind of stepping in the footsteps of people in front of us. Like my farm was built at a time when there was a book written called 80 Acres. Everybody around here read. I'm sure Bryce has read it. And it's about the Dutch farmer and how they operated, and why they built their houses the way they built them, and how they did things, right? And my farm is kind of modeled after that, with some changes. The education part of it was not something they did, except educating their own kids, I suppose. But anyway, that's just what I've been exploring the last couple of days. But when you start thinking about things that way, like this fella here with the turban on, he talked about where he got started, buying a condo. And then after a while, he was like, well, there are cleaner investments, meaning I can invest money in a company, and then the deal that I make with that company is that I will get this much per month, until the investment is paid off. And that's after you've got, a lot of money. And that type of investing, you don't do anything except wait for the money to come in. You've made the investment. Of course, there's a risk, but you get savvy about it after a while, and you don't make bad risks. You don't make bad loans. And so the investor kind of steps in where normally the bank would step in, but it's sort of like you are being your own bank. You're your own investment company. Kind of neat. I want to learn more about it and pass more of it on to you. But when I started listening to that, you don't worry. Those guys don't worry about, well, gas is up to $4.59. You didn't care. What difference does it make? He's kind of out of that system. It's just, okay, this operating expense just went up. I still got to drive. Okay, so I'm writing off my fuel expense. So what? They're just completely outside of it. And I'm not sure if the big farms around here operate that way. I really don't know. I don't know any of them well enough to know how they do it. I kind of think not. I think that their source of income is just loans from the USDA, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're making huge profits, but that's not what I'm hearing. All right, there was a question. Nance had a question, and then we can get into the subject. That wasn't really the subject, although that's what's kind of turning my crank these days. Quick question. How far away do I have to have the make pig away from other females? I have one make, 3 ladies, so I would like to breed just one for the first time to see how it goes. Oh. Well, if the pigs are going to make it, they got to be close. I know what you mean, Nancy. How far? Well, if you got them separated with electric, they could be, very close. That strand of electric, that will hold. If you don't do electric and the females smell the male and they want to get bred, those females will break out. They will climb, they will go under, they will go through to get to the male. That's usually the way it goes. The males will pace the fence, and they'll make a bunch of noise and they'll froth and everything, but they're not really going to work too hard to get those females. They'll think they want to, but the females, they're going to make it happen. They'll make it happen. And you'll kind of find them in his pen, in the corner, smoking a cigarette. That's how you'll know. So use electric and you shouldn't have a problem. That'll keep the females, but you're going to have to be diligent with your electric, like one at 6, one at 12, one at, 24, and one at 36. I mean, you're going to really need it unless there's just an impenetrable barrier that they can't get through. You will need it. And I don't know what'll just don't be surprised if you get defeated on that. Just don't be surprised, because it's happened here. And it is amazing what those females will climb to get bred. So, I wanted to talk about permanent crops. And when is the best time to plant permanent crops? Last year. Permanent crops would be like raspberry bushes, blueberries, asparagus, strawberries, all your tree crops. And I think that if we look at our homesteads as like production facilities, right? You really have to. You have to look at it more like a business model, It has to be productive. If we have something that we're doing and it loses money, but we really like doing it, okay, it's like going and playing golf. I'm losing money, but I really like playing golf. Okay, go play golf. But just know and acknowledge that it's a loser. It's losing money. Let's say you like growing pomegranates, but nobody will buy them from you, but you like eating pomegranates. Well, if you didn't grow them, you'd have to buy them. So you're losing money growing pomegranates, but that's okay. But just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. And you have to know what your expenses, your expenditures, and your profits, you have to know that to figure out where you're at. Because at some point you're going to say, oh, well, I need more money to do this. So I'm going to beef up production on this to make more income so I can get this built. And so you need to know which one you're going to beef up, which one does the best, right? So, but your permanent crops, they differ from your annuals. Like your annuals are sort of like your short-term savings. So, okay, I heard Glenn Beck today talking about food shortages. He makes a pretty good argument for food shortages coming like this winter. And I don't know what's in it for him to scare everybody, but he says that the just-in-time supply system, they always knew was not very durable. It was not very resilient. They always knew, like the IGA downtown. They don't have a warehouse out back. Everything that they have is on the shelf. It's just in time stocking. So now there's a problem. We don't have drivers because of the Wu flu. And now it's like, well, we can't send the truck unless it's full because diesel fuel is almost $5.50 now, or I don't even know what diesel fuel is. So they're waiting until the trucks are full, and then they get to the store and there's empty shelves. So the stores don't like it, but what can the stores do? They're going to take it if they can get it. So the just-in-time system has not only been at the store, it backs up from there. That's why you have very few new cars hitting the lots now, because the parts for the cars, a lot of them are coming from overseas, and they should have arrived just in time to put it on the car, but they didn't. And so they got to keep that line moving. Now you got a car going out the other side that doesn't have a, EGR module on it. So it's sitting out there and it won't run. Well, how are we going to get it back in the line to get that on it? Well, that's a good question. We'll just send Billy Bob out there to throw that EGR module on it. Yeah, but then we can't ops check the entire system. Well, too bad. It's got to go. So there's a lot of problems that potentially could be coming. Like they're compounding. A lot of these problems are compounding. The beard looks a little... Oh, it is. Huh. So he makes a pretty good argument. So I think in the short term, I would plant a lot of potatoes, just a lot of potatoes, because you can live on them. And I would make sure that I got really good at my butchering skills so that I could utilize those skills, because, yeah, we've got plenty of cows around, but we don't have plenty of butchers around. And so permanent crops are nice because once they're put in, you don't have to worry about them again. I have this thing that I noticed years ago when I would do something that I would know needed to be done or built. Like, let's say the overhead rail in our butcher shop. I built one outside as well for hoisting up pigs when we are going to scald and scrape them. And when I got done building it, I stood back from it and I said, good, that's done. I don't have to do that again. Not that it was a big pain to do. It took, you know, some skill and some thinking and all that stuff. And it works. It actually, I have a trolley on it that goes back and forth, so I can slide up a heavy animal out, 600 pounds, pick it up with a 1-ton hoist, drop it back down into a scalding tank, and then get the hair all off of it. So it does work. But when it was done being built, I thought, I don't have to build that again. Not like I have to every year, like cleaning out the feed tank that I had to do today. I got to do that every couple of years. That's not going to take care of itself. It has to be done. So when you put in your permanent crops and the next year rolls around, like, let's say, you just sit there and wait for the strawberries to come. I don't have to plant them every year. Here's some of the things I don't have to plant this year. Okay, I don't have to plant the apple tree. We got a big apple tree out there that I don't know who planted, but it's been there a long time. It's a big tree, and we get a lot of sustenance off that tree. I mean, a lot. Big apples like this, and they're good to eat. I don't have to plant them. I've got a pea tree that I planted about 5 years ago, and it gave us like 45 really nice peaches last year. I don't have to plant that, and it's going to do it again this year because it's rolling that direction. Got a couple cherry trees, same thing. I've got shade trees. I didn't actually plant them; they just kind of came up. But I don't have to do that, you know. And my raspberry bushes, I put those in 15 years ago, and they went from a 2-foot wide band of skeins that I put in, or canes, not skeins, canes, and they got to be about 10 feet wide. And so today, my job was today, I'd put a fence right down the middle of them, and I put ground cover down on one side and covered them up because they had just gotten too big, you know. So you have all those things in. It's almost like passive income. You know, you have all these permanent crops in that are going to give you a lot, and you didn't have to do anything. You know, maybe like with trees, maybe you water them, maybe you don't. You know, I don't really water the trees here. When I start them, I guess I do. I put a dripper on them. And well, last year I planted 50 honey locust trees. Of the 50 I planted, I didn't lose one. I did not lose one, not even one at this point. They are tough. And of all the things that are growing so far, like the grass is growing really well, the rye is growing really well. The quackgrass is growing, but we don't have the garden planted. But those honey locust trees are, you know, they're jumping up, and they are also putting green on. So they're doing really well. Once they're planted, I don't have to plant them again. And at some point, within 5 years, I'll have mature honey locust trees that will drop up to 80 pounds of pods each. So 50 times 8, what's that? That's a lot of feed. That will be either eaten off the ground by the cows, or some of it. I planted them on fence lines, and my figuring was half of them will drop in with the animals. The other half will drop on the outside, and we'll pick them up. It puts out a bean pod about 2 feet long with a great big, you know, lima bean looking thing in it, but bigger than a lima bean. And they're actually a legume. So they're nitrogen fixers. Yeah, amazing tree. And there's a lot of amazing permanent crops out there. You just have to look around for them. All right. Now, let's say that there was a company, let's call it Don Santu. Let's call it Don Santu, okay? And they start up a company and they say, hey, you know what? Let's do honey locust tree starts, and we'll sell them. We'll sell them to people. And people can get these starts that'll be about 18 inches tall, and they can put them in. And they go, yeah, that's a good idea. And they get a good business going. But then after a while, the business model, it kind of peters out after a while, because everybody around there has already bought those trees, and the trees are maturing, and people are taking cuttings off the trees and getting them started. And so now Don Santu goes out of business. So they say, well, we're not going to do that again. The next product that we create, let's create like a corn. Okay, a corn. Yeah, they'll have to come back to us every year. Well, no, they won't, because they'll save their own seeds. I know. We'll modify the seeds so they won't grow. So you can plant them, but they won't grow. Yeah, good idea. So now we'll have people coming back every year, and we'll make chemicals that you can spray on them. Matter of fact, we'll have a contract saying you got to spray that chemical on them in order to get it the next year. And we'll make them sit through a class and be licensed and everything. Yeah, good idea. Well, that's what's happened with agriculture a lot. So you got to look at agriculture like we are really looking at everything else now. Is there a better way to do this? You know, would permanent crops be beneficial to mankind? Well, they sure would. But would they be benefit to these companies? I mean, the companies make decisions based on their shareholders. It's not like they're evil. They're just trying to make more share for their shareholders. That is their fiduciary responsibility to do that. So for them to make a seed corn that has a suicide gene in it, that's just a great idea. That guy probably got a bonus that week, you know. Good thinking, Tony. Oh, I wish I came up with that idea. Yeah, good, huh? They're not really evil. They're just profiteers, you know, and I don't know. I don't think they're evil. But we don't have to do things that way. You know, we can do things another way. And then for our little biosphere that we live in, our little homestead, well, we could be highly profitable if we do stuff like that. You know, if we're planting crops that come in every single year, tree crops especially, and then you get smart about it. Like, well, I've seen where people put in an apple orchard, and they put in a really big apple orchard, and then all of a sudden they've got a tiger by the tail. Now you have all these apples come in at the same time. And what if nobody wants to buy the apples? What do we do with them? You know, you got to think multi-species, and you got to think self-harvesting. You got to think about marketing. In my case, if I had that orchard, I would try to line up every apple customer I could. But if I didn't get them, those apples would be replacing the feed that I have to buy for my livestock, for my pigs. So my pigs would become the customer of those. And then when I have a bunch of pigs that are fed out on apples, if they're getting too big, I process them, and then they go on the shelf in the freezer, right? So the end of the cycle is right within this biosphere. I don't have to really rely on anybody from the outside, if that makes sense. I do that on a smaller scale with a lot of things, like you know, when we process chickens. Well, do we have to rely on a guy to come and take away the heads and feet? No, the pigs want them. So we give them to the pigs, they're gone, they're disappeared. And they become pork, actually. So become like this transfer unit, they magically transfer or convert. They're conversion units. They'll convert, ryegrass into pork and, protein and fat. They're great conversion units. So anyway, there's a lot that goes with the permanent crops and the permanent crop main, way of thinking that is just kind of really fun to talk about, I think. And the homestead being a profit center, creating wealth out of nothing is really neat to talk about. I did some investing today. I invested $50 in my soil today. I bought some pelletized lime and I put that on my garden. So I'm hoping I get a kick of at least $50. I didn't use $50 worth on but I bought 8 bags at $5 a bag and something like that. So it was somewhere around $50, $48. I don't know. But then on the grow area, I put 3 bags out there. I put 2 bags on the garden. I'm going to put 2 bags on this garden over here. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll put some on the lawn out in front, and who knows. But it's an investment in something that's going to pay me back. Okay, what else we got here? Haven's with us. Bryce is with us. Lame Buck. And everyone, Inga says, everyone you pay after you got taxed pays taxes on it as income. It's a double whammy where the house always wins. You're right. But it's just like everything else, especially in this country. I'm not forced to play that game. I'm not forced to do that. Your employer agrees to take out taxes and willingly sends them to the IRS or to whoever. But if you set it up right and, take the shelters that are available to you, that's not sleazy. It's not sleazy. That's another thing. We've heard, well, the one thing you count on, death and taxes. Oh, I heard that since I was a little kid. So I guess everybody's got to pay taxes, right? No, not everybody. You can if you want, but you don't have to. And I'm not saying just, refusing to pay. I'm saying that if, like Elon Musk, he doesn't show an income. He doesn't take a paycheck from Tesla. He takes stocks, and the stocks go in his portfolio. So when you think, well, Elon Musk, he's the richest man in the world. Well, does that mean he's got a bank someplace just full of $1 bills or $100 bills? No. He probably doesn't have any money in the bank. All of his wealth is in assets, right? And see, I think it gets really kind of interesting. And this is what's kind of turning me on here is we talk about assets and liabilities in the farming game all the time. When you have stuff that you're not using, where's Justin, by the way? He's not here tonight. I wonder how my trailer's doing. But I had this trailer and I was hauling cattle up to the USDA shop to be butchered. But then I said, why am I doing this? Every time I write them a check, it's for like $800. I'm worth $800. I can butcher that cow. I'd like to have that $800 in my account. So I'm going to do it myself. Well, now I don't need the trailer anymore. All I really need is a knife and a .22 rifle. And then I've got T-bone steaks. Plus I'm paying myself the $800 that, there's ways to think about all this stuff that when you hear about there ain't no money in farming, it's like, are you kidding me? How is that? Well, what is this? What is this stuff that keeps coming my way when I send products that way? There ain't no money in farming. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. So anyway, I'd like to sit down with a couple of astute farmers, and I don't know why I don't. You know what? We should have a little powwow, with some of us that live around here. We could easily get together and talk about there ain't no money in farming. I'd like to hear what Bryce has to say about that. I really would. And Haven, I would like to hear your take on that. I really would. We see that there are people who parlay it a certain way, but is their wealth coming from the product that they're producing? That's the part that everybody is kind of like, well, I'm not sure. Is there that kind of money in what they're doing, with all that equipment, or is it something else? Who knows? I mean, they're not about to share their personal finances with us, and we wouldn't ask them to, but it would be kind of nice to understand that a little bit better. I do know that when you get a baby chick, you buy the necessary feed for that chick, you feed that out, you butcher that chicken, and then you sell it at a reasonable rate. Yeah, there's profit there. There's profit, good profit. So you raise 10 chickens, it's whatever that profit is times 10. So I would think you're making $7 per bird, or $7.50. I would think. Haven knows for sure. I should probably know, but I don't really track it. Jill does, and then you times 100, and then we usually do about 1,500 a summer, right? So tell me that's not good profit. Or when you do chicken butchering for people, we're at $4.75 a bird. You do 200 birds. You tell me there's no money in farming, because that is farming. I mean, somebody's going to argue, well, that ain't farming. That's butchering. Well, farming is everything related to the production of carbohydrates and proteins. That's everything along the way. You are in the farming business. If you participate any place in there, you're in that business. So I don't know. I just refuse to, I'm not going to say I refuse to believe any of this stuff anymore. It's just that I'm not going to just take it as I hear it and say, well, it must be, because that's what everybody's saying. I want to look at it a little bit better. We should kind of have a night and say all of these little quips that you hear all the time and talk about them. There ain't no money in farming. That's a good one. That's a good one. Some of the most wealthy people in this community are in the farming business or retail businesses that affect farmers and work with farmers and all that stuff. So anyway, that's it for me for tonight. This is where we break off for Wednesday. I'm glad that I have a night off because I have a consulting thing to do tomorrow night. So I am going to be meeting with one of our tribes people at their new property, and they've got a beautiful piece of property, and we're going to actually kind of make a fun time of it. He's got little kids and I got little kids. So we're going to bring a picnic with us and then walk the property and then sit down on the blankets and have something to eat. So it'll be fun, and it is profitable too. All right. Nancy says, I am going with electric. Oh yeah, electric fence for sure. Electric fence is a problem solver. It really is. Okay, so today I'm working out on this project. I'm really psyched. I mean, I've got a couple hours set aside. I can work on it. I can just listen to tunes and, do the planting and organizing and all that stuff that I've wanted to do. And all of a sudden, I realize I can't do any of this because I've got these two puppies, and they're not really puppies anymore. They're pretty big. They're probably 50 pounds each, and they're into everything. You know, they're just running, rolling, you know, fighting, and they're together all the time. And any place I go, they come with me. And if I'm working in the garden, they're going to be in the garden with me. And I thought, wow, they're holding me hostage. I can tell them to get out of the garden, but they won't. They will not do what I tell them to do. They're not trained yet. So I said, well, I'll fix you. So I got me some temporary electric fence, and it took me an hour to build it. But I even had to go to Ebel's and get insulators because I didn't have enough. And I put a strand of electric wire around the garden, and then I could walk in there. Jill brought me home some strawberries from homeschool, and she brought it down and she put it down on the ground. And I said, "You see that? You can put it down there." But if there was no electric there, the puppies would have come down and they'd pick those things up and carry them off. They're like, "I'm going to take it over here and keep it away from you." They do that. You take your shoes and socks off and they'll grab a sock and take off with it. So they're okay, but when they're puppies, they can terrorize you. You know, I transplanted some of my raspberry bushes, and it was really neat the way I did it. I took a post hole digger, and there'd be a plant up about this high, really nice leaves on it and everything. So I just go right over it, and then turn it 90 degrees and go, and it would make a plug, and I could pluck it right out, just pluck it right out. And then I'd take it over to a hole that I'd already made, and I'd just take it and put it down in the hole, push them together, and pull the thing out. And it was the perfect planting. And when I went out there this morning to look at them, usually if they're struggling, they'll wilt, and then sometimes they'll come back. Maybe not, but these were all they looked like they grew there. It's just really neat. So anyway, I had a good time today. It's one of the things, I got to share this too. One of the things that I am hearing from a lot of these people that get into what they consider old age. This one guy, this Japanese guy, he's like, I'm in my 50s, so I'm, kind of old. And he goes, yeah, I've known a lot of people that they get into their 80s and they say, well, I wish I took more time to hang out and affect humanity than to just build my empire. Because then they're at the end of their life and there's nothing that they can do at that point. And they may just die in a hotel room getting ready to sign a great big deal, the next big deal, where they could probably do with about 95% less than what they have, and take the wife out to dinner a little bit more, soccer games, or take the kids fishing, or all those things. So that's something to keep in mind too. With the homestead. The homestead is a family place, and it needs to be put together so everybody can enjoy it. And it's not always about, profit isn't always dollar profit. It could be, we had a good time profit. That's, you make money so you can have a good time, right? But we have good times and don't spend any money. So anyway, I'm going to get going. I appreciate everybody coming by. We will see you on Thursday. July 9th is Tribe Day. That's coming up. June 11th is the pastured poultry class. Fantastic success last year, and I'm sure it will be this year. Nancy says, I have about 10 seed buckthorn seedlings to control wildlife a bit. Berries are supposed to be great. No, Nancy says she thought the male was going to try and get the females. They make a kind of an attempt, but they're not as dedicated as the females. The female, they'll just do it. They will do it. When it's time to get bred, they're going. That's how women are. Okay, I gotta go. Anyone can farm. Good night. See you Thursday.